Brian, it is so great to talk with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
You have been back home for a couple of days now, but I got to ask you, do you still have to pinch yourself every once in a while because you can't believe that you're out of that prison?
It's hard. It's hard to know that it's really real. It hasn't really set in yet.
The night the governor commuted your sentence, I know we all knew about it, and we were all thrilled, and I was talking to your dad, and he said, I'm waiting to hear from Brian. You didn't know right away, did you?
Everybody else knew. I had no idea.
How did you find out? Tell us what happened.
They moved me to another location that night, pretty much immediately as soon as everybody else knew, and Governor Christie had made the announcement. I didn't know until 6:30 the next morning. That entire time, I was just kind of sitting in purgatory, wondering, why am I being held in, intensive close custody?
Yeah.
Then at 6:30, they just said, call your people and tell them to come pick you up.
And I mean, my gosh, that's incredible.
It was overwhelming.
I've got to ask you though, what was it like for 4 months sitting in that cell, knowing you did nothing wrong, but that a judge refused to let the jury know the full story?
It was terrible. It was about the most un-American thing I could have thought of.
Mm-hmm. But how did you deal with it, knowing that here the most important point of your trial was about which was about the exemption for moving, and the jury couldn't decide about it?
I knew that it would make a great basis for an appeal. It was pretty heart-wrenching.
Mm-hmm. Again, you're sitting in the courtroom. The jury asked the judge 3 times for information about the exemption. He says no 3 times. Did you see then and think, oh my gosh, I think I'm in trouble?
Oh, I knew it. I knew it right then. I had huge flashes of hope as soon as I knew that the judge wasn't going to grant the exemptions. He told us that he wasn't going to, and as soon as the jury came back the first time, I was like, they know, like they see that I'm being bullied. They know that they're being bullied, and they want to know the law. They know that I'm innocent. They want to find me not guilty, and. After they came back 3 times, I was like, I don't know how many more times they can possibly come back and ask the same question.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think the judge wouldn't let them know?
Politics. He was offended that I appeared on Judge Napolitano's show, and from the very beginning he said, Andrew Napolitano is no longer a New Jersey Superior Court judge. I'm the judge in this court, and I make the law.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, have you heard from any of the jurors since you've been let out of prison?
I actually got an email a night or 2 ago from one of the jurors, and he congratulated me, said that he was glad that I was out, and let me know, because he wanted me to know that they weren't allowed to decide on the exemptions, and obviously they were fearful for themselves, like, what if they could be charged with contempt for, I don't believe they knew about jury nullification.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard from them, and he said the reason they came back 3 times with requests for the exemptions because they wanted to make sure that I had a basis for an appeal.
I mean, whatever happened to jury by your peers? I mean, this was jury by a judge, from what it sounds like to me.
That's exactly what it was. There's no point in the jury taking 2.5 days off from work.
Really is. And everyone who hears it and learns about this case, they use the word a miscarriage of justice.
Those are really the only words for it. And I mean, the arrest should have never happened in the first place, but once it did, there never should have been an indictment. And just everything that happened after it is seething with corruption, and it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
And seething with the corruption, and there you are in New Jersey. So, I mean, it speaks for itself, I think, when you see what happened.
It's kind of redundant.
Yeah. I've got to ask you, though, when you look at this case, I mean, everybody's talking about how you're a poster child for, the NRA and gun rights. Is it to you more than just about gun rights?
It's, for me, it's about constitutional rights. the first one violated obviously was the Second Amendment right. Then after that, the First Amendment right. After I was discouraged from having a fair trial because of the comments that I made about my case to Judge Napolitano. But there's Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights that were violated. Illegal search and seizure. They should have never searched my car. I was held, against my will, without being under arrest, without any sort of inquiry whatsoever. And I think, to be honest, it was a bit of a cruel and unusual punishment, and that's the Eighth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, they took the Constitution, and when I said, hey, I have these rights, they were like, no, you don't. You're in New Jersey.
I mean, it's amazing that a judge would admit that, hey, you were on this show, so I'm going to hold that against you, buddy.
Oh, he did it. He didn't have any problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
According to my dad, he read an article where the judge actually made a comment and is trying to displace all of the blame. He was more than happy to convict me. The jury didn't convict me; he convicted me, and he was more than happy to do it. And now that Governor Christie has stepped in and said, you know what, another wrongdoing by James Morley, and I've got to fix another one of his mistakes. Now he's like, oh, you know what, I didn't write the law. I wasn't the sentencing judge. Well, that's just a big cop-out. Mm-hmm. And it's time for people to be held accountable for their actions.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And, I mean, you were actually offered a plea bargain early on, weren't you?
I was offered it about 5 or 6 times from the prosecutor and the judge. And he told me, cop-out, take a year, and, you'll be out on the streets in a year.
Mm-hmm. And you said, no way.
I didn't even think about it. They were like, go home, think about it, get back to us tomorrow. And I told them I have my answer now. No way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you did nothing wrong. And as you said, it really is an amazing situation. But it is also, I think, it speaks volumes that here you have Governor Christie, and he has not reappointed Judge Morley. I think that says it all.
It does. And, if this was his first incident, they might have had to have looked into, his other cases a bit more thoroughly, but fortunately for me, they'd already done that.
Yeah. And you were just moving. Where were you moving from, just so people know?
My first move was a few days before that was from Colorado to New Jersey.
Right.
And then on that day, I was moving from Mount Laurel to Hoboken.
Mm-hmm. Switching gears a bit, there are thousands of supporters out there across this country and around the world, in fact.
Yeah, the outpouring of support has been absolutely amazing.
Were you able to keep up with this, Brian, on what was going on the outside while you were on the inside?
On a very limited scale. My access to the outside world was limited to the Wall Street Journal and 15-minute increments on the telephone.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. What was it like, though, inside that prison? Did you have a cellmate?
39 of them.
Wow.
I was in one big room with 39 other convicted felons.
Did you ever really get a night's sleep?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, not in the past 4 months, not until last night.
And there you are. You have done nothing wrong, and I'm sure there's some pretty, it's a medium security facility. I'm sure there were some pretty hardcore folks in there.
Oh, there were. There definitely were.
Mm-hmm. When you look at this, and I know you want to move on, and I know it's so important that you do, but what do you want people to take from this? What impact do you want to have on our judicial system, on our judges, on our lawmakers, on our prosecutors?
Well, I feel a responsibility that now that I have the spotlight for my 15 minutes of fame, I need to preach as hard and heavy as I can that things need to change. The government doesn't exist to punish the people. That's not the concept of a government. Innocent people, rather. When these things happen, it makes you look at this case and think this should be happening in North Korea or Iran. This is not an American thing to be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But if any message could be taken from this, it's stand up for your rights. Don't accept plea offers. If you did nothing wrong, stand up for your rights night and day.
Mm-hmm. And it is so true, and that's what you're doing. And I know your family, they have been so helpful to all of us through this ordeal.
What they have done has been absolutely tremendous, and I can't thank them and everyone else enough. I would still be in prison if it wasn't for my family, my girlfriend, especially my parents. My dad has been so aggressively pursuing getting me out of prison.
Mm-hmm. And for Governor Christie, who saw the injustice in all of this.
He's an amazing an amazing governor.
Yep.
And we're lucky in New Jersey to have him as a governor.
Mm-hmm. Anything you see yourself wanting to do because of this?
Immediately, I just I want to start rebuilding my life.
Yes.
But long term, I feel compelled to get involved with individual rights or constitutional rights, Second Amendment rights, and start influencing change, because Barack Obama's promised hope and he promised change, but we've gotten a whole lot of the same, and it's time for people to realize that no one's going to do it for us, and it's time for us to step in and do it ourselves.
Alrighty, Brian, I'll let you go, and I'm so thankful that this turned out before Christmas, that you're able to spend time with your family, and as you said, to start your life all over. I'm sure this is something you will never forget, though.
Never will.